Hello there, and welcome to a unfortunately pre-recorded edition of the Championship Review. Apologies, we did try to go live early tonight, but we had some technical issues. But I am your host, as Carl Levy, as usual. Please, everyone, if you do want to subscribe to this channel, please like and hit that subscribe button and hit the notification button for upcoming content. Joining us as usual, hopefully they can hear me properly in this recording session, is both Michael and Annie. How you doing, guys?
Well, the big question is, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Right, there we go. How long did it take? About 6-7 tries to get here, but we've at least got somewhere.
Well, that's the only way we could do it. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Bloody hell! And especially, I've had my computer on for at least an hour or so, and I've been sitting here and I'm watching the NFL stuff before we try to get on, and I'm just thinking, what the hell's happening?
It was one of those annoying things, isn't it? When no matter what you try, technically everything just goes to pieces, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially as a former IT student and IT analyst myself, I'm a bit perplexed, but it is what it is anyway. So,
Yeah.
but we're here. Let's get on with the show.
But anyway, I mean, we're all right. Are you?
Yeah. Well, Annie.
I'm good. I'm better than I was on the 75th minute of a particular game today. But yeah, I'm feeling good. And after about half an hour, let's get this show on the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about our teams later on in the show, as we usually do. Let's start off with actually the teams. They still got a 100% home record, and it's Blackburn. They won 2-0 yesterday against QPR, and goals from Danny Bath as well. You know, Is anyone surprised how their form has been impressive, despite there was a bit of a situation that thought everyone was kind of worried about there. What will be this Blackburn side after it's not John Eustace's players?
To some degree, I'm surprised by how well they've started, especially considering they sold Smodics, didn't they? But I mean, in fairness, if you look at their fixtures at home, they've had Derby, Oxford, Bristol City, and QPR. So they've got teams, at least certainly the likes of Derby and Oxford, for instance, that are teams that they would expect to win, or not necessarily expect, but you would realistically hope to win more so than not. And they've got some decent points on the road as well, haven't they? They've got a draw away at Burnley, which is a very good result. And then after a bunch of biting incidents going on, which was really random, they got a point away at Preston last week, which was quite amusing. But no, I think they've only lost once. Oh no, they haven't been beaten yet. I'm talking rubbish. No, they've done really, really well in the midst of losing Smodics. And obviously yesterday, if you're getting to a QPR side down to 10 men, sometimes playing against 10 men is not always easy because they put everybody behind the ball. It's all about how you can break a team down. Good to see former Sunderland defender Danny Bart scoring. So good to see he's found a club where he's playing regularly. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think even the wildest of Blackburn fans, after the way last season went, could have predicted how they've started.
Yeah, Annie, QPR paid the price later on in half-time. Varane getting sent off just before the half-time break, for a late challenge on Danny Bath. Looking at QPR's form at the moment, Matty Clifford said they played good, decent football in the first half, but during the second half, there was ideas that they could improve in the second half. Is it a bit of early alarm bells ringing for QPR at the moment?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say alarm bells per se. I think they're quite comfortable with where they are at the moment. Rangers. They created a couple of really good chances before they went down to 10 men in that first half. They played really well, and were a little bit unlucky to go down to 10 men, and then eventually lose the game after you go down to 10 men against the Blackburn side, who have had 100% home record so far. It'll always be a tough ask at Ewood. Look, I don't think you can be too concerned from a QPR perspective just because you lost this match. It's silly from Jonathan Varane, but it's also town unlucky as well. So, weird one from a Rangers perspective, I'm sure, but I wouldn't say alarm bells per se. I think they've been quite consistent this season. I think they'll be more than fine.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about the table later on. Where they are. It's not bad in the mid-table at the moment, but yeah, especially that you're going against a really good Blackburn side at the moment. It's scoring goals for fun, which is very incredible from their ends this start of the season. Let's go to Friday night's game and Plymouth. What a win for them! Winning 3-1 against Luton Town on Friday night. Goals from Sissoko scoring twice, Al Raj scored it in the 8th minute, and Victor Moses scored it in the 70th minute. Annie, you surprised there's been a bit of a turnaround under Wayne Rooney with the revival of the poor start he had, to the start of the season. It's looked like he's slowly putting his stamp on the players that he's got at the moment to get, Plymouth out of the situation that they put themselves in.
Well, they started poorly. I think there was never going to be a panic from the Plymouth board to sack Rooney. I think he was always going to be given time. He has been given that, and quite frankly, he's proving to be quite good. I think Plymouth, if they've shown it's come back to a little bit more of the kind of Steven Schumacher Plymouth than Plymouth what it was under Ian Foster last season, where it was let's slow it down, let's play some very methodical football. When actually that Plymouth side with Whittaker and Mumba and Hardy, and now they've added Sissoko, who looks really good. It's just about attack, and not really worry about the defensive side of things. And that's getting the best out of, again, Whittaker, Hardy, Sissoko, and I can't remember the guy, the boy's name who scored the first one for Plymouth. But
Al Haj,
that's the one. Yeah, he's getting the best out of them attacking players, and there's not just a win. This is a win against the Luton side have just dropped down from the Premier League with a lot of quality, a lot of top end Championship quality. So this is a seriously impressive win. And I think if Rooney can mitigate home park well, and I think they're unbeaten at home so far, Plymouth, aren't they? So if you can find a way to get the best out of that home park crowd and get the best out of the players at home park, Plymouth will be fine this season, and they'll be definitely fighting for a place in the Championship next season. So I'd be encouraged if I was a Plymouth fan. I'm seeing some good signs again from those attacking players I've mentioned, and I think given a little bit more time, Rooney's style of play is really coming across, and you can see that quite clearly.
Absolutely, Michael and Rob Edwards. He talked about after the game and after Luton had back-to-back wins for the first time since last December. He talked about that they weren't clinical enough, and then did it defend well enough. It's he says it's really frustrating to come away losing a game. We'll talk about both ends of the pitch. Is this a bit of another setback after they had their slow starts as well, Luton, before winning 2 games before Friday night, especially with the quality they have against a Plymouth side, as well. And that was very baffling, surprising how they lost it towards the end of the game.
Weirdly, I don't know why, but I fancy Plymouth to get something out of this. But I felt like watching the game, I felt like Plymouth should have won by. I think the scoreline flattered Luton. If anything, I thought Plymouth should have won probably by 3 or 4 clear goals, because I felt like Plymouth were really direct, were really intimidating towards Plymouth in both. And obviously, it's like talking about when you're all right in between both boxes, but it's in both boxes where games are won and lost, aren't they? So from Luton's point of view, it comes back to what I said before. I think teams now are going to be coming up against Luton to some degree, coming up against Luton and going, these guys were in the Premier League last year, we're going to have to up our game here. Whereas beforehand, they didn't have that obstacle. They didn't have the challenge of being expectant in terms of winning games as much as what they are now. And especially with the fact they've come down with parachute money, but obviously that's going towards their new ground. So they're still more or less on a neutral footing financially with non-parachute clubs, I think. But yeah, Rob Edwards is an honest guy. We know what he's like. He's been around enough at Luton and interviews that he's done. I think Luton will be all right. I guess it just depends from Luton what their expectation is. You would, as a relegated club, you'd imagine try to get back into the Premier League, but they need to sort themselves out if they're going to end up getting anywhere near the top 6, let alone automatics or anything. If that's going to be in the conversation, and Victor Moses was who scored for them, wasn't he? And yeah, fair enough. Can he signing for them in the Championship? Even though obviously he's been probably more towards the latter end of his career now. But I'm not going to take anything away from Plymouth. I felt like obviously they've and he's wrong in that they had lost at home to Stoke before the international break, but then typically they bounce back and beat us. But regardless of that, I will say this, mind, from the game I watched them play against Sunderland when they beat Sunderland and the game I watched here, Arthur Sissoko is fast becoming a really favourite of mine in the Championship. He's direct, he's technical, he's tricky, he's really good, he's got pace, he can score goals to his game. He looks a really, really handy player. I might be wrong. Is he on loan at Plymouth?
Yeah, he's on loan.
I thought he was. But no, I think I was, so as much as I was disappointed by Luton, I will say this for Rooney, I was very, very impressed with how Plymouth set up, and I was impressed with the intensity and the aggression they showed. And yeah, from Luton's point of view, disappointing, but from Plymouth, thoroughly deserved win.
Absolutely, absolutely deserved win for the Pilgrims on Friday night. Let's go to Pride Park in one of the Saturday lunchtime kickoff. This one was interesting. Very controversial when Saints scored the opening goal towards the end of half time for Norwich, but the ball was already out when Josh Sargent did try to cross it in. The ball was already out. The controversy, the linesman missed it. Listen, I think we're all surprised that if there's no VAR to overturn that decision, which is very surprising because it gets so expensive. Do you now see certain questions now that they might have to include it at some point? Because if those controversial moves does happen at some point later in the season, something has to change.
I mean, it definitely does. I mean, but also I think it's got to raise questions about the standard of officiating in the Championship, and I've been quite consistent with the fact, and this isn't bitterness because we've won 5 of our first 7. Even when we've won, I've said the officials are shite. I'm sorry, the officials are shocking in this division. But I mean, how on earth? I mean, it's not so much on the referee that good. I suppose first and foremost, from Norwich's point of view, really good win, as it says down the bottom of the screen that Derby had won 3 out of, was it 100% home record before? There's won 3 out of 3 in the Championship, I think. So to go to Derby, and especially when they've just been newly promoted, that's a really, really good sign for Norwich to go there and get a win. I thought Derby played okay. I think from what you expect of them when they're up against better players, I thought they gave Norwich a good enough goal. But Derby were undone by a very, very controversial first goal that really shouldn't have stood. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, there's always been a big question about VAR in the Championship. It's merit, it's not merit, or whatever it is. It's not so much on the referee, that one for me. It's more the linesman. How on earth the linesman or lines official, if it was a woman doing it, whatever, how on earth one of them could not see that, I have no clue. The ball is clearly out by a good few meters when the ball is going out of play and Josh Sargent keeps it back in. And it's not Sargent's problem. You keep playing till the whistle, don't you? But yeah, that was absolutely shocking officiating for that goal to stand. And if that had not been given as it shouldn't have been, then the game could have gone totally different. It's fine margins like that could really, really turn games on its head. But I don't know what Annie thinks.
I agree. I think Derby played well. Norwich have done well to get out of there with 3 points, considering how hard of a place Pride Park is to go. I've seen it firsthand this season. Those Derby fans make a hell of a lot of noise. It's a bit of a cauldron, and it's a really difficult place to go, even for newly promote, even for teams at the top of the Championship. It'll be a really, really difficult place to go to and get a result. So, very, very impressive. Norwich have gone there and got 3 points. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not good officiating from the pair, linesman and the referee. Well, the first goal, I think it's the second goal, isn't it? Borja Sainz. So again, he scored a hat trick, but where Jack Stacey is that one's kind of borderline as well, whether it's in or out of play. So yeah, it's incredibly controversial, and normally Paul Warne, someone who's very honest in his press conferences, even when Derby win or lose, he said that they've been shafted by the officials. So I think that's a bit of a sign that maybe something has to change. Maybe VAR needs to come in, but it's at the end of the day, it's from an individual referee performance, it's just not good enough. I think we're the 6th most watched division in across Europe. it's completely unacceptable, and we've got to find a way to eradicate what seems to be a kind of high frequency of bad decisions from referees, and it happens to be that it's a group of referees who keep making the same mistakes, and it's not acceptable because there's a whole lot at stake at championship level, and if you keep getting wrong kind of decisions or unjust or whatever it is, decisions against you, it's just not good enough compared to what the stakes are at championship level.
Yeah, no, you both made good, strong points. Especially like you said, we're the only leagues outside of like the top five, the big leagues to have VAR, and even La Liga, goal line technology. Goal line technology, and even La Liga don't want to pay for it because they claim to be expensive. So it's a bit perplexed how La Liga has got VAR and they don't have goal line technology, but we don't have VAR, but we have goal line technology. So it's
Scottish
a bit
Premiership has VAR as well, and we don't.
Yeah,
It's mental.
It's mental. It really is. We'll talk about the game in a bit shortly about Sheffield United and West Brom, but there is been
Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday. Apologies,
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. But there has been a very controversial moment, and unfortunately, it was sad news that a Albion fan died after a medical emergency on last night on Saturday. But the thing is, the officials did not stop the game for the medical. The game continued while the game was on. He had a medical episode and he thought she passed away. Are you surprised that the officials did do nothing to try, to stop the game because it was someone life threatening moment, which unfortunately someone's lost, an Albion fan has lost their lives?
Well, that's the first I've heard of it, that the officials didn't do anything about it. I'll quickly say West Brom put out the tweet about an hour ago saying that the fan in question is called Mark Townsend. Is a West Brom fan who lost his life. So obviously condolences to Mark's family and friends, which is which things like that put football into perspective. What's a cliche saying? Nobody should leave to go to a football match and not come home. So I think that's pretty applicable in this case. So rest in peace to Mark. But as for the officiating not stopping the game, if that is, it depends. If they didn't know anything that was happening, but then I could understand it. But at the same time, I'd imagine that there would have been a lot of people inside Hillsborough. I'm speculating here, but I'd be surprised if there were a lot of people inside Hillsborough that weren't trying to make the officials aware that there was a medical emergency in the West Brom away end. If they were aware of it and then didn't stop the game, then yeah, I guess you could say that is poor. If they weren't aware of it, then obviously it's a bit harder, but I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure I would believe it. But yeah, it just makes you wonder about how, because Hillsborough's got a pretty deemed unsafe away end, haven't they?
Yeah, they do.
I don't know what the medical emergency, if the medical emergency was a result of the away being in the away end, but I don't know. It's definitely a talking point if the officials didn't stop the game. Yeah.
It is a talking point, and one fan of the game who's wished to remain anonymous, he did tell the BBC while CPR could be delivered, there was no room to do it in immediate mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and there was limited space to get the stretcher down onto the concourse.
Okay, then. Yeah, well, in which case, then it probably would have been poor not to stop the game, because ultimately, as much as we all really care about our clubs and football, it's ultimately not life or death. Right? It sometimes feels like it is, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things. So if stopping the game meant that there could have been more space to perform resuscitation and CPR mouth to mouth or whatever it is that's needed to try and save Mark's life, then if that was affected, then yeah, that is poor. And I suppose there will be an investigation into it by the appropriate bodies, whether it's West Brom, Sheffield Wednesday, whoever else it is. But yeah, ultimately, it's not really going to change anything for Mark's family and friends, but at least maybe help a little bit of closure in that regard. But yeah, it's a delicate subject really to talk about. But yeah, no, it's definitely, if you're not stopping a game with a medical emergency, then yeah, people have every right to ask questions.
Absolutely, they do have the right to ask questions. But let's go into the game. A good win for Sheffield Wednesday late on. They were 2-0 up by half time. And go. West Brom equalised through Josh Manager and Alex Moore. Annie, I would say this: Sheffield Wednesday could have nearly lost this game, but give credit to Anthony Masaba's late strike to get that win to end West Brom's 100% winning record. This was a close game compared to what we thought it was going to be.
I think we've kind of been waiting for Wednesday to just maybe start moving up the table a little bit. It has, well, it's a really, really impressive win considering West Brom's, first, unbeaten record so far, but also their defensive record has been superb and they've looked really good both at the Hawthorns and away from home. So it's a really impressive win for Wednesday. I can't remember who played the ball for the pre-assist for the last Sheffield Wednesday goal. It might have been Barry Bannon. Probably was Barry.
It was Barry Bannon, yeah.
But yeah, that kind of moment of quality, incredibly impressive. And yeah, look, it was a funny game because Wednesday probably deserved to be 2-0 up. Great header from Josh Windass, and then the funniest of goals from Alex Mower, where from the edge of the box, it looks like I was watching the highlights and I was like, oh my god, he's going to hit it from the edge of the box and he's going to put it right in the top corner. Nope, bounces straight into the ground over Beadle and just kind of loops over him, and very very on Alex Mower like because when he hits a volley, it normally is caught clean and right into the top.
Yeah,
top corner.
yeah.
But in the end, Wednesday showing a lot of character, like we know they have done under Danny Roll in this whole tenure so far. West Brom will be disappointed, but they can still reflect on the start they've had as really positive, and they're still scoring goals, which is very very impressive. And it's not, again, Hillsborough is not an easy place to go. Not many teams will go there and come out with 3 points. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how West Brom will react to this. I'm not sure who they've got next.
They've got Middlesbrough at home on Tuesday night.
That'll be a fun game. But yeah, they should be fine. I don't think Colbrand's too good of a manager to let one defeat affect what has been a fantastic start to their season.
Absolutely, and I will hopefully see Danny Rose, Sheffield Wednesday. Sorry, it's just because
nearly did it again there.
Yeah, it's because it's two Sheffield United teams. It's hard. It's like Man United when I said Man United, I see, but somehow I get both teams separately right when I but when it's Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, it's.
Do you know the thing? Even as a neutral, and it really annoys me, is when people go, "Oh, well, we played Sheffield."
Yeah,
which one?
Sheffield.
There's two clubs.
Yeah.
It's even happened before when I think when we've played Bristol City before, and some other Sunderland fans have gone, "Oh, we played Bristol." Which one? Bristol City. Even as someone who doesn't support either City or Rovers, it annoys me when people just say one word of their club names. But yeah, it's just one of those illogical things that annoys you when it shouldn't, but it does.
Listen, I think if this is only my one and only season presented this championship review, I'm hopefully when we get back up to the Premier League, I don't have to deal with this scenario again, where I could just
Yeah, well, you're still going to have to deal with Manchester United and Manchester City, aren't you?
I can deal with that easily. That's no problem.
I know it's going to happen.
You know what?
You're going to win the league. You and Sheffield United will get. You and Sheffield United will get automatic promotion, and Sheffield Wednesday will rise up and will go via the playoffs.
Do you know what? They make it easier for me because as a Leeds United fan, I just call Man United, the S word or whatever.
Yeah.
That makes it easier for me. But yeah, I have to be neutral sometimes. Right, let's go to Hull round off their 120th anniversary by winning 4-1 against Cardiff at home. Bakir Bellamy scored twice. He scored his first 2 goals for the club as well. And we talked about what's been going on at Cardiff. A lot's going on at Cardiff after they sacked the manager, and they've only scored 2 goals in the championship this
season.
Try
to look impartial, Annie. Come on.
Look, I'm concerned by what's going on at Cardiff.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
No.
Listen,
okay.
I'm concerned what's going on at Cardiff. He said through his back-gritted teeth.
Sorry, I won't take the mic anymore. Look, it's very concerning. It doesn't look like they've got someone lined up as an immediate replacement for Errol Bullitt. Omer Riza, I think, is the guy in the system at the moment, who I looked him up, who was Turkish. I watched a bit of his post-match interview. Has got the most beautiful East London accent I've ever heard in my life. It's unreal. It completely shocks the system. But anyway, yeah, they were, from what I heard, really, really poor. 4 goals, which were kind of soft, but Hull looking a little bit better. They've scored 7 goals in the last 2 games. Cardiff and Stoke aren't the greatest teams at the moment, but still putting 7 past them is in those 2 games no easy feat in the Championship.
Went behind in both games as well.
Yeah, exactly. Showed some character, and there were some questionable decisions by Tim Walter at the start of the game in terms of team selection. Liam Miller being left out, for example, is one of them. But yeah, Bellumi looks a really good player. He looks like someone Hull can can bank on in the future as real talent, potential big money sale. And yeah, it just feels like the players are slowly but surely getting hold of the Tim Walter kind of style of play and system. Cardiff, on the other hand, look a right mess and still at the bottom of the table, still have only scored 2 goals, 1 point, and I have to kind of say it, but they look really, really destined for League One at the moment, because I really don't see I don't see a manager who's going to come into that football club at the moment with kind of ownership issues. And that's why I think Sabri Lamouchi, when he came into Cardiff, did an incredible job at keeping them up, because with this current squad at the minute, I just don't see the kind of attacking quality there. I don't see the attacking consistent level of production in terms of that, and also the defensive stability. I just don't see it. I think they've got a complete mismatch in terms of player profiles. Got too many players who are kind of at the wrong end of their careers. Kind of like maybe not. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe some players who have done it previously at championship level, but are no longer good enough for that
Past
level.
their best.
Yeah, past their best. Like Chris Willock, for example, who are really, really good at QPR for a couple of years, but they've taken a punt on him. That's clearly just not working out because it's not the kind of system he wants to be in. And yeah, it just feels like they've gone. They don't know. It doesn't really feel like Cardiff have an idea of what they want to do as a football club in
No.
terms of style of play. What do they want to do? They've gone from Mick McCarthy, who is, Mick McCarthy style of football, to Steve Morrison and Mark Hudson, who've tried to kind of pass their way into in the Championship, sack both of them, and then they've gone to Sabri Lamouchi, didn't renew his contract, and then they've gone to Errol Bullitt, and now we have no idea who the next manager is going to be. So it just feels like a complete chasm of a mess. It feels like a hot mess at Cardiff, and I can't see them moving anytime soon out of that bottom 3 at the minute, especially who I think at the moment have got teams around them that are starting to move a little bit, starting to climb the table a little bit more, and teams who I think have got enough quality to move out of the bottom 3. And unless Cardiff have kind of a miraculous next appointment in terms of their manager, they're going to find it really difficult to kind of haul themselves out of the bottom 3, I imagine.
They're effectively 5 points adrift as well. If you look at their goal difference, it's minus 15. So if you look at the teams above them, Portsmouth minus 6, Preston minus 8, Coventry minus 5, Stoke minus 7, along those lines. And you got but like Cardiff just look really, really poor at the moment, which is something, because I remember Nathan, bless him, put a message and put like a screenshot of like Cardiff's best 11, and I think he put something like, maybe this is me being deluded, but this team maybe gets near the playoffs. Maybe with a competent manager, who knows? It depends. But but again, it's one where unless the longer Cardiff are down there, the more they're going to struggle to attract someone. Remember who the owner is here, Vincent Tan, who's an absolute moron, to put it politely. He's only probably, him and Jeffan Chansiri are probably the joint most bonkers owners in this division. And there probably was quite a number of people for that accolade. But yeah, Cardiff need to get their finger out soon enough, and if they don't, then they could end up really getting cut adrift. The caveat to this is obviously it is still early. It is still very early. There is still 39 games to go. But again, the longer you're down there, the more you get cut adrift. More games run out, less points to play for. It just becomes a real shit show, to be honest. So yeah. Cardiff Cardiff really need to get their finger out here, otherwise they will be in League One.
If they don't win one out there for the next 3 games, when it gets after to game 10, I think they are in trouble.
Well, have you seen? Go on, Annie. Go on.
It's hardly like Cardiff have been, apart from last season. It's hardly like Cardiff have been in comfortable mid-table, kind of championship standard a team. They've been down the bottom for about 3/4 of the times they've been in the since they've been in the championship, apart from 2 seasons, and it just feels like kind of a natural kind of cycle that they haven't had an ownership change. They really haven't had a massive revamp of the squad. They have had I'm wrong. They've had revamps of squads, but not in the right direction. They've had revamps of squad, but then that's not worked out. So it's just I'm really struggling with Cardiff at the minute. I'm really struggling with where they're going in the level. It's not like they've been playing well and losing games. They've been playing badly. They've been conceding goals on a horrible rate, and they're losing games comprehensively most of the time, even if the scoreline doesn't reflect it. Even the 1 point they have got at Swansea should have cut them out of the game at half time, and similar to what they did today actually. But they should have won that game as well, Swansea. So Cardiff, I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with them at the minute.
You know, when Carl talks about their fixtures coming up, Millwall at home on Tuesday, then the 7-side derby away at Ashton Gate, then Plymouth at home, then Portsmouth at home. If by the end of that Pompey game, they still haven't got at least, you probably need about 5-6 points at minimum out of that, I'd say, to really start to try and close the gap. If they haven't got that, then they look really in trouble, because then they've got West Brom, then Norwich, then Luton, then Blackburn, and so on. It's not looking particularly good for them. And the problem with Cardiff with Vincent Tan is there's no identity in what identity are they wanting to try and get towards. Like, at least with a lot of other clubs, you can see a plan in the way that they're trying to play. Even if results don't show it, then they're at least starting to try to show something. Like, for example, I mean, we'll get onto them in a minute, but like, say, for example, Middlesbrough, just as the top of my head, you could at least see a plan and a style that Carrick wants to do. It's just a matter of whether the players are going to make the most of their chances. Whereas with Cardiff, what's their identity? What's their tactic? What's their plan? What's their methodology? I'm saying that. Well, Vincent Tan's methodology is madness and just hope that things really fall into place. But that's not a good way to run a football club.
No.
That bloke got so lucky with Neil Warnock. It is unreal.
Yeah,
he's got so lucky with Neil Warnock. He has just been. He's been living off that for a lot of it, and that's probably kind of delayed this period of where Cardiff are at the moment. This could have happened a couple of years ago if Neil Warnock hadn't worked his magic at Cardiff. But I think we can all agree that Cardiff, it might.
Well, I've seen an article I've seen a quote that sums them up from BBC. It says Omar Rita says several Cardiff players can't play 90 minutes. What the hell were they doing in pre-season then if you can't play 90 minutes?
That is,
Says it all for me.
Exactly.
And with that comment coming out, what you just said there, it is a huge worry. And if you're not doing much in the preseason, what are you doing? Are you just playing walking football or something? Is that how you get the best out of your players at the moment? They say that is a huge worry if an interim manager comes out with that comment. It really is.
I think it's been a concern with Errol Bullock before, hasn't it? I think in Turkey, where he deemed, I think his players were like not fit enough or something. Oh, he walked into Fenerbahce or something, and he just and within like a few months after he was sacked, the new manager came out and said the players aren't fit enough, and it's just I think it's been a concern with Bullock before, but whether or not that's the right decision, whether or not they get, basically what Cardiff have to do now is get the next hire absolutely spot on, because if they don't, they're pretty much relegated, because they can't afford to waste too much more time, because they've already wasted 7 games, and 7 games in the Championship is a lot of games, and it can really define a season in a lot of ways. So hopefully from a Cardiff perspective they get the next appointment right, because they absolutely need to.
Absolutely, and I think Vincent Tan should be focusing more on the team than focusing the off-field situation, especially the Emmanuel Salah, the situation after he lost his life, and now they're trying to get money for noughts. a huge amount of money, about over £100 million. So he needs to focus on the team then dealing with this because if you're like I said, he owned a few stakes in LAFC. He sold it during the pandemic, and they look at where they are now because he couldn't. If he didn't sell a stake, he would have been winning another trophy in his cabinet. And so, yeah, it's huge work for Cardiff for what we are talking about. I know Nathan is just really concerned, especially who's going to be the next manager coming in. It really is. Right. Let's go to the North Yorkshire, go to Middlesbrough. They won 2-0 against Stoke City yesterday.
North
Goals from
Yorkshire.
Ben Doak and Hayden Hackney.
Small town in Yorkshire, Annie. Now that he's got it, Carl's got it right.
Hey,
I know. But it's just
listen,
up
as
there,
Yorkshire, I have to realise Middlesbrough is part of Yorkshire, even though there's people saying they're not, but technically they are in some confusion, but they are
Northeast Yorkshire.
Yeah, that's all I can say with that one. Listen, Stoke are still trying to get used to the new manager, Michael, but that was an easy win for Middlesbrough to just get that 3 points.
I wouldn't go as far as say that there was pressure on Michael Carrick, but to relieve a bit of tension, they needed to win this game. And if you're just looking at Borough's for the squad Borough have got, it's been a kind of a stop-start sort of start to the season where it's been a bit inconsistent. Where they seem from some games they seem to have really good performances where they just can't put their chances away. And then if you look at for example, the defeat at Sunderland last week, they had apart from a Tommy Conway header in the first 6 minutes, I think it was. They were very ineffective with the ball when they had it. Yeah, Andy, I see your smirk you've got there. You can thank us for keeping a clean sheet against him then. But look, that aside, Conway was actually one of their best players, to be fair. Not that you're going to love to hear that. But either way, it was a typical Borough criticism where Borough have the lot of the ball but are very ineffective with it. And I think and look, we've had the discussions about whether Sunderland Middlesbrough is a derby or not. For Borough fans, it's definitely a bigger game, and for them to bounce back. But the point is for them to bounce back from that defeat by playing this Stoke team. Well, it looks like they played them reasonably off the park and played them relatively comfortably. It's what they needed. It is what they needed. Obviously, the first goal comes from a shot that I think comes from the left-hand side. It goes across everybody towards the keep, towards Victor Johansson, and then, of course, Ben Doak, I think is that his name? How you pronounce it? Yeah. Doug just smashes it in. But that's the sort of thing, sometimes that's the rub of the green you need. Hayden Hackney's goal, yeah, that's really quality. Chef's kiss. It's all about whether Middlesbrough can sort of really kick on from here, because I think they've only, because it's weird, because I think in 7 games they've won 3, drawn 2, lost 2, I believe. So they're unbeaten at home, which is a good thing. They've just got to get into a habit of putting chances away. Latilat, am I right in thinking Latilat still hasn't scored yet this season?
He scored on opening day, I think.
Yeah, I think that's.
He scored a penalty against Swansea. Okay, then, but so he hasn't scored an open play goal then this season. If that's the case, which is quite weird considering how well and like white hot he was at the end of last season. As you said, for Stoke, it's just about getting new ideas and new methods in, and that will take time. So for Borough, this is probably the best time to play Stoke, but nevertheless, you've got to beat what's in front of you. And for a game, if Borough have aspirations of being in the promotion picture by the end of the season, then games like this really have to be 3 points, especially at home. They'll have a tricky test. I think their next 2 games are away at West Brom first, then Watford next Saturday. So I think, why can't Borough get at both teams and maybe see what they can get out of those games? Ahead of those 2 games, this was massive for Borough. But and I think it's not pressure on Michael Carrick, but just to ease the anxiety a little bit, they needed to win, and win they did.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And Annie, look, Nassis Pelage he's got a big job at Stoke, and I've been reading some stories about Stoke of the culture at the club. It just feels very cold. Is this going to be a lot of work for him to try to bring a huge atmosphere back at the club? Because it's diabolical when the ownership is one of the biggest dividend people that owns for the betting side. Just don't know what to do, especially when they don't have no structure at the moment.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think Walters was bold with the call of sacking Schumacher. I think we can all agree with that. But I wouldn't say there's no structure. I think the Coates family have always been kind of, they've just been kind of what's the word? They've always been committed to Stoke, haven't they? They've always pumped a hell of a lot of money into Stoke.
Yeah.
But it's just about whether they can finally kind of break that glass ceiling of kind of lower half, bottom half in the Championship, and just just push a little bit further. They've tried a lot of different managers. Palac is kind of foreign and a little bit exotic and a little bit, Carlos Corberán-esque in a lot of ways. So I think that's what they're hoping from him, and that's not going to happen within 2 games. And Middlesbrough away is a tough game for any championship side. So I'm not surprised they've lost. So yeah, I think it's just about giving Nasis Palac time, because there's a lot of quality in that Stoke team. I think we can all agree on that. There's enough quality to be kind of mid-table at least. So yeah, I think Palac, given time, should be fine with Stoke. But yeah, from a Borough perspective, I agree with Michael. I wouldn't say, I'd say kind of similar with Liam Manning in a lot of ways. Not kind of pressure, but not like,
But
he's
it's not
gonna get
plain
sacked.
sailing, is it? Like, they needed
He's
to
not
get
going
a
to
win here, didn't they?
Yeah, it's pressure, but it's not like he's going to get sacked pressure. It's like, just win the next game, just relieve, like as he said, relieve a little bit of that tension. I think a lot of Borough fans were calling for Ben Doak to actually start in this game. He started ahead of Isaiah Jones, I think, and yeah, Hayden Hackney is going to play in the Premier League next season, if that's with Borough or not. I think he's made a hell of a lot of progression for Borough. So yeah, good win for them, and I think from their perspective, it's nice that they've scored a couple of goals to back up all the nice stats and the XG and the box entries and whatnot that they've been putting up over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's an absolute good win for Borough, and I know Stoke's got a lot of work to do going forward. Right, let's go to the new day. Millwall had a comfortable win on last Saturday, winning 3-1 against Preston North, and Michael, this was a very comfortable win for Millwall after the first win in 3 games. But Preston are looking not as it is what's been, after Paul Heckenbach came in with his first win, and not being, for what he was. Is he trying to change how the team plays? Is that why there's been a lot of defeats going for Preston at the moment?
I think it's a mixture of that, but I think when they played Blackburn last week, I think that Sky put a stat something like they were among the lowest scorers of the division. I think, or they had or certainly the lowest in terms of, again, if for XG hipsters out there, lowest in terms of XG chance to creation. And you got to remember, like I said, I've said this a few weeks back, that this is a team that's accustomed to Ryan Lowe's style of play, which is very different to how Heckenbottom set. And the context is set up at Sheffield United. Now, obviously, the context is Heckenbottom had better players there to work with to be able to implement the style that he wanted to implement. But I can't imagine Preston would have a bottom 3 budget in the division. I think they should have enough about them to be able to attract some decent quality. I think I don't think Preston fans want to hear this, but I'd imagine that they need to try and keep themselves above water until January and then see what Heckenbottom can really attract and try to bring in. For Millwall away, it looks like, from Millwall's point of view, it looks like the Millwall are getting back to the Millwall away being a tough place for most championship sides that we kind of commonly and stereotypically associate with them. But from Preston's point of view, look, apparently Millwall are a bogey side for them. So Preston, I think, have just got to make sure they get points at home and try to nick odd points away from home here and there. They did well, to be fair, to get something against Blackburn last week, considering they were down to 10 men for well over half of the game.
Yeah,
I know Blackburn.
That was a horrible tackle from Sam Greenwood. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know if he's been on loan from us and to Brown this year, he's not had that consistency at the moment. I think that's the issue.
No, he hasn't, has it? Well, that's why he's at Preston. And with all due respect to them, that's why he's at Preston and not like a club going for the top 6 in the Championship, really. I know he was at Borough last year, but Borough ultimately in the end weren't in the promotion picture. But the point is, how we phrase that, there's a reason why he's not at Borough again and he's at Preston. I think that's probably the best way to put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think, so in that sense, they did well to get something there, but they need to, if they're appointing Paul Heckenbottom, this suggests to me that they are wanting to move away from Ryan Lowe's style of football. I think that was a common complaint among Preston fans, and it's the typical thing. If your football's crap but you're winning, it doesn't matter. But as soon as you stop winning, then you're going to lose. You're going to lose plaudits very, very quickly. So yeah, I think Heckenbottom. I think it's going to be it's a appointment that kind of needs a bit of patience and a bit of time if they're wanting to change the style of play. I think this season, if they were comfortably safe, but you started to see a discernible shift towards a more attacking, exciting brand of football, I think Preston fans probably would take that. I can't speak. I'm not going to pretend to speak for them, but I would imagine they probably would. From Millwall's point of view, unless you want to ask Annie about Millwall, so I'll be quick on this. Yeah, Millwall, good win. Good. I think that was Macaulay Langstaff's first goal since moving from Notts County in the summer, which is good. And he obviously got an assist for Hunt. So it was basically Macaulay Langstaff and George Honeyman's show, really, wasn't it? So yeah, Millwall are showing some good signs at home. Preston, credible of water until Heckenbottom can implement his ideas properly.
Absolutely. And it is for Neil Harris, is it just to make sure that Millwall have another season in the Championship somewhere around the mid-table for them? Is that their expectations for him and the club?
Well, I think Millwall fans want to see a little bit of a shift to, kind of Millwall. The typical Millwall where you want to see, fast attacking, direct football, but kind of aggressive and kind of good pressing and sort of a style of play that's brought them a lot of success over the years. So yeah, championship survival is important, but I think they also want to see a little bit more of an attacking style of football, which they haven't been seeing from a Gary Rowett or a Joe Edwards in the last kind of 5-6 years. So yeah, I think that's why Neil Harris was brought back, and yeah, I think they're seeing that. To be honest, there's a lot more like the Millwall we've been used to, as Michael said. Tough place to go. The Den when it's rocking, it's a really difficult place to go. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be pleased with that. And look, when you have a player like Romain Essa who can change a game if he's at it, it always helps as well. So yeah, Millwall just kind of slowly just prodding along in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. With their first win in 3. Let's go to the Kasan stage. It was a 0-0 draw. Burnley was held to a very frustrating draw, and it's a little bit of a setback for Scott Parker not to get. They wasted so much chances yesterday, didn't they?
Yes. They probably should have won the game. Oxford will be pleased with that point, but yeah, they should have probably won the game. Burnley, what I've read from Burnley fans they were a little bit slow and ponderous on the ball when Oxford kind of sat in, which you don't obviously want too many times to happen too many times this season. But yeah, look, I think Burnley can still be, it's a point away from home at a side who've got a 100% home record this season as well. So it's not at the moment, it's not the easiest place to go. They'll be looking at their next 2 home games against Plymouth and Preston, and as an opportunity to get another 6 points on the board. And I'm sure Scott Parker will be highlighting that as more of a targety game. But yeah, it's a point. It wasn't kind of free flowing and kind of liquid football as Burnley would probably expect to play a lot of this season. Oxford made it difficult for them. They couldn't break them down. I'm sure if they come up against low blocks as the season goes on, which they probably will be a lot of the time, they'll find a way to kind of get through it because they've got so much quality. So it won't happen every game where they don't score goals because they will score goals. But yeah, I'm sure they won't be too concerned by what happened yesterday.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. Michael, anything on the yesterday's game at the Kasan Stadium, or do you agree with Annie's points?
I more or less agree with pretty much what Annie said. First of all, like really cracking point for Oxford. I think it's again when you're defending a low block and you're trying to defend a low block and really doing well in terms of having a structure, you've got to be concentrating constantly for 90 minutes against a team that have got the quality that Burnley have had itself. Foster, Sarmiento, Brownhill, just to name a few of them. There'll be plenty of other ones in amongst it. I agree what Annie said about Burnley's next 2 home fixtures. Was it Plymouth and Preston at home? If they win those 2 games, then the point at Oxford doesn't look like a bad point, if you know what I mean. I think if you win the 2 home games, then you go, all right, you've won the 2 home games, you've got a point away at a team that had previously had 100% record at the Kassam. But I will say from Oxford's point of view, 7 games, 10 points. I don't think many Oxford fans can complain with that tally. The only thing they need to try and do now is to try and improve their away record, but so far Oxford have really impressed me with how they've gone about in their return to the Championship. Time will tell whether it's like they're playing on momentum and a bit of a buzz from getting promoted, but they're where they are on merit. You can't argue with it. And like Annie said, yeah, I think Burnley will come up against teams that will defend a low block against them. But yeah, they've already proved that, to be fair. And a lot of Portsmouth at home last week was an example where I imagine there would have been times in that game when Portsmouth had to defend a low block and really make it difficult, and they found a way to win in the end. So yeah, I think they're steadily progressing from what happened in the summer. When you remember there was a saga in the summer with Burnley when there was like a lot of players basically being linked with moves away. And things like everything's just settled down now, and you carry on to the end of the season.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I think, like Philly said, Burnley, despite they lost a lot of players, they still got some good, decent players coming into the club. But as I said, this could, after Tuesday's game, it could be a good, decent point at Oxford yesterday.
On
Let's go. Yeah,
on
let's
Oxford,
go on.
just quickly on Oxford, they've got two very interesting away games next at Luton, which will be tough, but very capable of nicking something there.
Yeah,
And then Pompey away is huge for both Pompey and
Yeah.
for Oxford. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they get on in those next two away games.
absolutely. So we are going on to Pompey. Sheffield United maintained their unbeaten start to the Championship season with a goalless draw, with Port being still waiting for their first win since promotion to the second tier. I have to say, this was a closely even game between these two sides. They could have chances to win. Michael, we're not surprised. We're still a bit surprised that Port still wait for their first win in the campaign, but they got this important draw against one of the promotion favourites.
I'll refer again. Portsmouth's first 7 fixtures: Leeds, Luton, Middlesbrough, Sunderland, West Brom, Burnley, Sheffield United. I defy anyone to in the Championship that has had as tough a start fixture-wise as what Portsmouth have had. And I've said repeatedly that these games, for me, to be honest, I mean, Portsmouth, what is it, one, but they've done well. Probably, I think Portsmouth fans realistically probably would have took the points tally that they've got by the end of this run of harder games on paper anyway. These games for me wouldn't have defined if they stay up or not, and I still stand by it. I think Fratton Park will be essential to their chances of survival. But now you look at their next fixtures coming up, like just this month alone: Stoke, Oxford, QPR, Cardiff, Sheffield Wednesday. These are the games that will determine it for me. But as far as this game goes, that's a very solid, like with Oxford with Burnley, that's a very solid point for me as far as I'm concerned for Portsmouth. It's all about just when you're keeping it. And yes, okay, they lost to Sunderland, they've lost to West Brom, they lost in the last minute to Burnley. But at the end of the day, look, West Brom and Sunderland are currently top 2 in the Championship, and Burnley are 4th. So at the end of the day, they've not disgraced themselves really by any stretch of the imagination. So Portsmouth, I think, and Portsmouth had their chances as well to try and win this game as well. So they didn't exactly just sit back and not attack. They basically did. They did try to go for it, and I think if they can build on the points tally that they've got from these games, and they know themselves going, right, now we've got the fixtures that are very, very winnable. And then if they don't win any game in the next month, in the next 4 or 5 fixtures, then obviously it's cause for concern. But right now with Portsmouth, personally, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, no. Any thoughts of your on this?
Pompey look like a much better side. It's funny because they've got a lot of their better defenders back. Regan Poole, Tom McIntyre has started their second consecutive game together. And Jacob Farrell came in yesterday, a left back, and he looked really immense for them. So good signs for Mousinho. Freddie Potts looks like such a good player as well. He was on loan at Wickham last season in League One and stepped up to the Championship. With these, I think with Pompey, they've had a lot of moments this season. Again, in this game, they had moments where I think Callum Lang has a shot saved at point blank range, and in the 93rd minute, Jacob Farrell has a header which he sends over the top from a corner. So it's the little moments for Portsmouth they'll start picking up, as Michael said. Hardest fixture to start of come comfortably in the out of any other Championship clubs. So these next batch of fixtures from this midweek up until the 9th of November, they've got a pretty decent run of fixtures. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games where they can realistically pick up a hell of a lot of points. So that'll be the run for Pompey, which defines them, which is a little bit scary because 8 games consecutively is quite something. But look, if Pompey want to stay up in the Championship, they're gonna have to get points at some point, and these next 8 games are going to be absolutely massive for them to do so.
Absolutely.
Can I just quickly say, sorry, on Sheffield United? From Sheffield United's point of view, not a bad point, considering that, again, West Brom and Sunderland both got beat, so I think it's a point closer to the top 2 for them. And actually, their next 2 fixtures, they've got a week at Bramall Lane, Swansea at home Tuesday night, and then, is that Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday night, my mistake, and then Luton at home on the Saturday. So Swans are both kind of mid-table-ish at the moment, so it's going to be... So from Chris Wilder's point of view, they'll be disappointed. It's a better point for Pompey than it is for Sheffield United, obviously. But from Sheffield United's perspective, they've got a chance to bounce. But like with Burnley, they've got 2 home games themselves to prove that they can bounce back.
Yeah, no, they absolutely.
Or build on it and get a couple of wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we've got 3 games left. It's between our clubs. I'm going to see who goes before. Michael, I think you need to get things off your chest, so I'm going to go with your boys. You missed a chance to go top of the table yesterday at Vicarage Road. Were you surprised how you dominated Watford? Had better chances, but they won the game. They took their chances.
Well, at the end of it, I actually fancy. I was 5 minutes away from getting the score right because I said we'd draw this game actually. Which, if we'd drawn the game, I think it would have took us back top, wouldn't it? But it's irrelevant. We'd lost the game. So, first half an hour we were very poor. Watford, we like as for if any either of you, whatever you'll have seen of us, we like to defend a low block and we like to try and we've got the players to quickly press and counter on teams when they come onto us, and particularly away from home, we do tend to have a structure. The only issue, and I do quite like that, but the only problem with that is that you need to concentrate for a lot of different, for long spells in games. And Watford, to be fair, when they scored, did deserve it, I think. I didn't think Watford were brilliant, but they did just about deserve to be in front, I think, because we weren't showing enough the other side of it. But then as soon as we conceded, we then started to wake up and then started to cause them some problems. So we're Sunderland at our best. Were we at our best? No. We have seen us play better than what we did yesterday. But I think once we got going, we started to look threatening and started to create some decent chances. Patrick Roberts got an assist for Wilson Isidore. So obviously the striker we got on loan from Zenit St. Petersburg. That was his first start in place of the injured Eliza Mienda. And he scored, which was a pretty good striker's goal, actually. And it's the first time since we've sold Ross Stewart that we've had someone who's an outlet really up top, I would say. If Wilson Isidore can keep it up anyway. But from Patrick Roberts' point of view, he's got a goal and 3 assists now. Now, bear in mind, last season he got a grand total of 1 goal contribution, which was an assist. So, this season, and we know how, and technically Patrick Roberts is one of the best players I've watched play for us, but if he had an end product, he would be in the Premier League. It's as simple as that, really. Once we equalised, we looked the better team in the second half, but Watford do look very quick on the break, I've got to say. They've got some lightning fast players to counter on here. And then, of course, came the incident later on, which I know Carl will have seen and Annie may have seen, the Dan Neil penalty incident, which was so incredibly infuriating and frustrating because it's, as the lad's running through inside, you show him further outside on the right-hand side, and we've got Dennis Sirkin covering, you've got defenders in the box who can head the ball away. It is a needless challenge to make because it's essentially cost us a point that I thought we looked well on course to be getting, which would have got us back top. And look, a point at Watford I don't think would have been a bad result because you're not going to win every game, and away from home, obviously away games are trickier than home games. So, but fair play to Watford, really good win. They stuck at it in the second half, and the last hour I would say that they were the inferior team in terms of performance, but the scoreline doesn't reflect that. It says that Watford won the game. It's a really big win, important for Watford to bounce back after not winning in the last few games. But yeah, I think from Sunderland, like we said, we've got for teams that have got back-to-back home games, we've got back-to-back home games against Derby and, of course, as Carl knows, Leeds on Friday night. So that's going to be a challenge, shall we say. But yeah, if we can beat Derby, which I'd like to hope we will, but it won't be a straightforward game, then we'll forget about it. But yeah, for Watford, really, really good win. Takes them within 2 points of us. And I didn't realise until I looked at the table, actually, the gap at the top 6 and 7 in the Championship separated by 3 points. It's early days, but that's how tight the league is at the moment. Yeah. And it reaffirms, and I think Carl will agree with this, it reaffirms the point that we're not going to have 3-4 teams run away with the league, run away at the top like we did last year. It's going to be a much closer sort of league than it was last season. So yeah, at the end of the day, positives from my perspective is that second half we were pretty decent. We should have got something out of the game. Wilson Isidore scored striker's goal. If we can get more, then we get someone up top who scores regularly. That would be a massive help. And the positive is that somehow we're still second, which I think, obviously, I think the only teams that really took advantage were like the likes of Leeds and Middlesbrough and Norwich, and Watford, obviously, but nobody. Blackburn beat 10 men, but Burnley didn't take advantage. Sheffield United didn't take advantage. It's just disappointing having West Brom lost in the early game that we didn't take the opportunity to go back top. But again, long way to go. Still loads of football to be played.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of your thoughts on yesterday's game at Vicarage Road?
No, I think Watford will be good at Vicarage Road this season, so I wouldn't be too disheartened if I was a Sunderland fan. To lose there, I think it'll be a tough place to go, and I think Cleverley is doing better than I think a lot of us expected. So yeah, disappointing because I think 2 defeats in the last 3 isn't it for Sunderland, which is
It's 2 away defeats on the bounce, but yeah, the away form is something that needs to be addressed in the near future. But really, 5 wins from the first 7, we can't really have too much cause for complaint. I think the only annoyance with the 2 defeats is they both came in either 90th minute or 84th minute, which is something we need to iron out. But yeah, sorry, Annie, go on.
No, exactly that.
Yeah, Annie, let's go to your team early today's game. Your Bristol City drawing 1-1 at Swansea. Can I ask you, lead up to the goal for Swansea's goal? Are you surprised that Max O'Leary was not given a free kick after Roland actually was actually interfering in the free kick when he was really grappling? Are you a bit surprised that the referee did not give a free kick?
At first glance, when I saw the goal initially, full speed, I was like, "Oh, he's." Well, I thought, the whole defence has just stood still on that set piece. Like no one has moved from our perspective, and Cabango's literally just come from the back, and he's just run to the back post, and he's just tapped it in. I thought I was furious with our defending, but then Max O'Leary, I see the replay, and this Ronaldo's just kind of stood there like that in front of Max, and it's just like, what is O'Leary actually meant to do in that situation? He can't if he kind of barges Ronaldo out of the way. There's a risk of giving a penalty away, and Ronaldo will probably make a massive meal out of it. And it's completely infuriating. And Manning said himself after the game that they've been kind of told by the referees that blocking on set pieces and time marking and stuff will be kind of honed down on this season, and incredibly disappointing that the linesman or the referee didn't pick up on that. The goal was actually allowed. I think it might have been Julian Warren on Sky or one of the one of the commentators said, if Max O'Leary in that situation makes a meal of it, he might actually get a foul, but because he stays on his feet and is kind of honest about it, he doesn't
counts
get
against him there, doesn't it? I'm just looking at it back. I'm looking at it back. That's shocking that was given. Like
it doesn't help his case, does it? When he kind of stood there, when maybe a more kind of streetwise footballer goes down or streetwise goalkeeper goes down and wins a free kick there. He does complain after the goal and does say, he's kind of impeding me, but it's kind of no use after that. On the game, I thought we started the game. We normally start games very well for the first 15 or so 20 minutes. We did the same here. A couple of really good chances. Scott Twine, Swansea's goalkeeper Lawrence Vigouroux, must have been on some sort of I'm not going to say it, but he must have been on something because he was absolutely brilliant. And a ridiculously good save from Scott Twine, kind of acrobatic-ish attempt. And after that, we just lost control of the game. Swansea scored from that controversial goal, and then after that, there was no kind of immediate reaction. Swansea just kept the hold of the ball. We couldn't get near them really, and it was really disappointing because we're at our best when we're trying to play through the thirds and trying to get the ball into the wide areas and kind of building pressure in that department. That's when we're deadly. Weren't allowed to do that. Half time, again, first 10 or so minutes, not really anything different. And then the substitutions actually made a massive impact in terms of in terms of the game, both for Swansea and for us. We made a triple substitution, I think like 60 something minute maybe, or 50 something minute. I can't quite remember. But yeah, funnily enough, it was 3 players who coming on the pitch who I wouldn't have had starting the game, and I would have actually said have been pretty poor this season in a Bristol City shirt. So for them to come on, change the game, and then after that, it was all us. Mehmeti down the left hand side, absolutely brilliant for the last half an hour, really causing them a lot of problems. And then yeah, it's just a set piece. Scott Twine, you know what Scott Twine can do on a set piece, can't you? And beautiful corner in. And Jason Knight with a captain's header into the back of the net in front of that away end in really nice fashion. So yeah, I think considering the game state and our first half performance, to have a good last half an hour and get out of a little bit of a get out of jail with a point at Swansea is not a bad result, especially considering it's a kind of feist. It's a rivalry to a certain degree. It's definitely not a derby. It's a rivalry to a certain degree, and we don't. It's we. You know, you know what it's like when you go away from home in a Sorvish rivalry. So, and we've not found it easy to go to Swansea many times. So, yeah, going out of there with a point is not a bad result. If and it's a big if, these next 2 home games against Sheffield Wednesday and Cardiff are backed up with at least 4 points, if not 6, because then we're looking at this going as a missed opportunity because we could have won this game as well because we hit the post and Sinclair Armstrong missed a 1-on-1. So yeah, not a bad point if we go and then back it up with 2 very good, hopefully, performances and results in the next 2 home games.
Fair. And listen, I'm also, while we record this, I'm watching my NFL team, Green Bay Packers, and we tried to do a flipping onside kick because we were trying to make the largest comeback, and somehow we did a stupid onside kick where it was just like a grubber kick, and he didn't even make no difference at all. So I'm a bit pissed off with that one and that too, you know. But listen, it's early in the season; we still get a chance to get to the playoffs. And speaking of playoffs, actually, let's go to finish off the round of cap off. Leeds winning 3-0 against Coventry yesterday, and I don't know if you guys got some questions to ask me. I'm open. I'm all ears.
Okay, I'll ask one, right. So, how much, because I imagine that it was an element of both you being really good and Coventry being passive, for want of a better word. Which ratio was it? Was it more you being good and Coventry being bad, if you know what I mean?
It's a mixture. I would say it's more, a little bit more in the middle, but I would lean towards how
I'd imagine it's more towards you being good than Coventry being bad, but it both can still be true, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think this game we all did expect, because I think our record against Mark Robbins wasn't the best until yesterday. I think we all had 1 win against him. So
took 4 points off you last season as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and that was the thing. We have to be very careful because Coventry could be good on its day, and we looked at last season, but I was surprised how unwell they didn't play that well. And you know what, go from Willie not. I actually did watch the game fully yesterday. I'm not going to say where, but I did watch the game fully yesterday. So, and do you know what? I think he's played well. I think Ramazani is actually looking at a good replacement for Somerville. I think he's now, he was taking time to get his match fitness. It looks really good. It looked like he's going to be terrorizing the right back and that defense, opposition defense now. I think we're just slowly getting the team in as we are. I think Bogle's coming a little bit better. I think he had a bit of criticism early start to the season, especially he looked good in pre-season. We've seen the best of him, and I think a lot of people are now backing Joe Perron now because he can get the goals. If you play any strength, you play in the right pass, he's credible. He can score. You just need to be patient with him, and I think Farker, there was criticism about his substitutions of how it was when we lost to Burnley over 2 weeks ago. I think, look, end of the day, we're gonna, this, like you just said early on, there's the teams around us is close. It's not going to be like it was last season when we all the 3-4 teams running away with it. It's going to be close. But I think to get that win against a Coventry side that we thought was going to be up there with us by now was very surprising. And I gotta give credit to the goalkeeper, Wilson, because he had to do a lot of saves in that game, and it could be 4-5 because Gruev had a good chance from a long range shot as well. So no, I think we lean more towards we played a lot more better than Coventry was very passive.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's games like that where Coventry are on bad run of form that you needed to capitalise and win. And as I said earlier, the top two teams lost. Okay, Blackburn won, but Burnley didn't win. Sheffield United didn't win. So it's, I think you were probably, obviously Watford beat us, so they moved up a bit, and Borough won, but you've still, and obviously Norwich, but you probably were, I would imagine, probably the bigger winners of the weekend, where you're now, 3 points off second, I think it is, or 2 points off second?
3 points off second, yeah.
Yeah, okay, then. So it's going to be, and obviously you've got Norwich and Sunderland away coming up next, so that's going to be, I think those two games will say probably, I'm probably Friday night for both of our teams actually, but we'll say where those sort of sides are at. But how are you feeling going into those two games? Because obviously, you've got a long trip to East Anglia, haven't you? And then you come up to
it's a long trip. Yeah, it is. And look, I think last season it was a different Norwich side under David Wagner to quite much year. It was, we did get the points away from them as well last season. Credibly, it was a really tough game last season. And I think in the playoff, we did play a bit more defensive to just try in that first leg, and which helped us to win in the second leg in the playoff semi-finals last season. I think because we now see Norwich slowly now coming into their best running form, it's probably the best time to play them because we want to play them on a good run of form as well as a bad time. I would say maybe a better time in some sections, but I think it's a bit of a neutral time to play them because they slowly come to their strengths. We slowly come into our strengths as well from the start of the season. So I just think at the moment we've got a stabilized 11. I know Ethan Ampadu went off with a knee injury. Hopefully, it's not going to be too serious. We'll know about the press conference in the morning, tomorrow on Monday morning, if he's fit to play. So but I think we've got the weapons that we need. It's just now to just get that consistency now with winning four of the last 5 games, and that's all we need to do. And yeah, I think the fans I think we need to be patient because they need to realize from last season we could have walked away with that league completely. And I think that, when some of that moment happens, and if we thought during the international break we would have a bit of another start again. But I think it's always when we do well before the next international break. It depends on how our players come out of it from the post-international break. So I think to get some results before the next 2-3 games before the next international break, we should be in that top 2, just in the to where we are before, to carry that momentum. Because if we lose before the international break, I think there's going to be some questions of where the players do come back, where the mentality is after the international break.
I think as well because before you played Cardiff, because after the defeat of Burnley, I think you had Cardiff, Coventry, Norwich, and Sunderland. So really, before you had Norwich and Sunderland, you really needed to get 6 points from Cardiff. And obviously, Cardiff were down to 10 men, but you still probably, I imagine, given the way Cardiff have started, you still probably would have won that game regardless of the red card.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've had the game at Coventry and Ellen Road as well. So the fact you've got 6 points out of that and you've dragged yourself back into it, you're never out of it, obviously, this early, but you know what I mean? You've dragged yourself into the playoff picture. And then you've got, obviously, 2 tricky away games. So I think if you at least come out of these 2 away games still at least in the top 6 and you haven't lost any ground, then I think going into games after that, I think it's probably going to be pretty good. But you never know. If you want to be in the top 2 after Friday, that's fine, as long as we're top and above you. That's okay. But we'll see. Probably not the case. From Coventry's point of view, I would say from their perspective, I mean, why is it that they can never ever seem to start well? They never. I mean, because I've got no doubt in my mind they will not be anywhere near where they are. But when you consider the money, and I know they've sold Gyökeres, they've sold Hamer, and they've sold Thomas Asante more recently, but when you look at the players the money that they've spent subsequently, like for them to still be round where they are is, you could say poor on Robbins, but also poor on the players, because Robbins has at least shown he can get something out of them later on in the season. And to be fair to Coventry, Leeds, I don't know what you think, Annie. Leeds away is obviously one of the hardest fixtures of the league for anyone that's going to be coming up against them, at Ellen Road in particular. But at what point does Mark Robbins start facing not pressure, but more criticism for the fact that Coventry seem to repeatedly have slow starts? Because if you look at last season, there was kind of a factor in that, Gyökeres and Hamer are both gone. They signed probably about a dozen players to go into a squad together. That takes time to gel. So last season I understood it. This season I don't think there should be many excuses for them starting poorly.
I think there already is criticism headed towards Robbins. To be honest, I think there's a lot of questions as well from Coventry fans regarding because they've had a high turnover in terms of coaches. So Adi Viviesh, who was Mark Robbins' number 2, right hand man basically for his whole tenure at Coventry so far. He left for unknown reasons, and he's had 2 new coaches, and it's there's a lot of questions at Coventry City. I don't think they're particularly happy because they're not really seeing a level of performance that is good enough compared to the squad. And honestly, I think for the first time in a long, long time, there's a lot of pressure. Well, not a lot of pressure, but
More
some.
pressure than there usually has been in the past
Yeah.
with Mark Robbins, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like he's working on a shoestring budget and Coventry are kind of mid-table and everyone's happy and everything's rosy. Coventry spent a hell of a lot of money over the last 2 years, even this summer. So I think there's pressure on Robbins to deliver. And ultimately, if they end the season anywhere near where they are at the moment, it'll be deemed a massive, massive failure. And Robbins might not be Coventry manager anymore. So who knows? But yeah, I'm sure Coventry fans would very much like Mark Robbins to be here by the end of the season, Coventry in the playoffs or something along those lines. But yeah, there's pressure on Coventry and Robbins, but in a lot of way, that pressure is coming from the good work that Mark Robbins has previously done with Coventry, getting to the playoff final and whatnot, and proving himself to be a really top manager. So there's pressure on Coventry. They normally start slowly, as you mentioned, Michael, but I'm sure they'll pick up eventually. But they have been saying that for the last few weeks, and they haven't quite done it yet.
Well, okay, just to put it into context, so I think I mentioned earlier with Coventry, but the next 5 fixtures: Blackburn at home on Tuesday, then you've got Sheffield Wednesday at home next Saturday, Preston away after the international break, then you go to Preston, then to QPR, then at home to Luton. So this is where I think you're going to see either if Coventry still haven't picked up by the end of that 5-game run-in, then I'll be starting to show maybe a little bit more concern towards them. Look, I've got no doubt I'd be very surprised if Coventry end up relegated at the end of the season. We talk about being a massive failure if they're near the relegation battle. If they somehow went down, I think that would be one of the biggest failures in Championship recent history, given how much money Coventry has spent and how much better really their squad should be. But no, I am with Annie though. I do think Coventry will start to pick up, but at some point we need to stop saying it and we need to start seeing it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I truly agree with that. The other person that would agree with that is our good friend Ant, and even though he's not going to come on until even when Coventry loses and Leicester wins. So I think that we see that side now that he's not going to join us to rub it.
He's not enjoying Coventry's play at all, is he?
Yeah, I know. And such what his messages we've been saying for the last few days, especially
because it's funny because he keeps on going on about how like Forest are Leicester's main rivals, but the way Ant goes on, it makes me really question that.
It does completely.
Ant told me off camera like last season. Oh, Forest are our biggest rivals. Not the way you go on about Coventry. It doesn't make me give me that impression, mate.
God. And even Coventry is not in the same. All right, I know it's in the Midlands, okay, but it's in the West Midlands. There's a difference.
Yeah. No, absolutely, but it's like Yorkshire, isn't it? Or it's like London. There's so many different teams across like one county area, whatever you want to call it. But but yeah, Ant's hatred for Coventry it does get me in stitches sometimes. I have to be honest.
Listen, it certainly does. There's no doubt about that at all. Actually, it really is. Gentlemen, thank you very much as always. I know this was a difficult day to try to go live, but at least we did record something. And at least we're gonna get it out as soon as possible. Let's go through the tables in the championship. Seeing the top for Blackburn and Leeds move up to third and fifth. The biggest movers were Hull City to move into the top half of the table. Oxford and Swansea still in, dropped down to 10th and 11th. Only two teams that still unbeaten is Blackburn and Sheffield United. And into the bottom half of the table, Cardiff and Pops are still registered a win, while the big movers were Sheffield Wednesday to move up to 18th. Coventry are just above in 21st place, above Preston North End. Yeah, well, gentlemen, thank you very much as always. And listen, hopefully we'll try to rectify our situation next week to get back to live. And hopefully it's not an issue. Now, I'm a bit nervous for Tuesday now. If I'm going to be doing another live content to do the rest of the roundup, I need to prepare the backup just in case if things go to shit. So,
yeah, fingers crossed next week's better in that regard.
I hope so too. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and listen, we're back on next Sunday to do another roundup with the championship review as well. And I will be back as well on Saturday at 11 a.m. with the Saturday show. But all you have a good week, and I will be talking to you back on Tuesday, hopefully, once things are rectified. Take care for now. Bye-bye.